So getting into the minds of the champions of the Overwatch League and finding out how they have found so much success is a very interesting thing to do. San Francisco's Shock have demonstrated an incredible amount of skill to win the Overwatch League for a second season running. But did they do it this season in a very vastly different way to what they did last season? Well, the results actually support that idea. Last season, San Francisco Shock struggled against the Atlanta Reign. The Atlanta Reign were an informed team at that time. They ended up having a C9 on Rialto, and they go down in a very narrow fashion. But after that, they clap back and 4-0 every single team throughout that bracket of the losers part of that finals, and ended up 4-0ing the Vancouver Titans in the end, who were extremely powerful at that point. Now, this season has been much tougher for the Shock. Yes, they are not the masters of the standings. They never have been. They've never secured that number one spot. It's always been taken away by someone else. This year it was the Shanghai Dragons. Last year it was the Vancouver Titans. But they're always there or thereabouts. And what has come to fruition during these grand finals? Why does Shock seem so good? And there's a pattern that's emerged during all of the San Francisco Shock's matches during these grand finals, and I think it's worth highlighting. I saw this in the comments of the results video, and I thought, hey, that's pretty intriguing. This needs a closer look. So, the San Francisco Shock played 3 matches during these grand finals. Their first match was against the Seoul Dynasty, then they played the Shanghai Dragons, and then they played the Seoul Dynasty in the grand final. And there is a pattern that emerges throughout these matches. And I think it may be a slight bit of a game plan. It may be a slight look into how Crusty thought about these matches and how he thought he could win them for the San Francisco Shock. Where his guidance is what is making the Shock so powerful right now. The Shock have got fantastic individual skill, but so have other teams in the league. So have Shanghai Dragons, so have the Seoul Dynasty, so have the Philadelphia Fusion. But let's take it from an isolated point of view. Sorry, Philly fans. But Philadelphia Fusion versus the San Francisco Shock, let's say. 2 teams that I think match each other in terms of individual player capability. But when it comes to the coaching of the teams, there's a vast difference. Crusty is almost a coaching god at this point, with what he was able to do with the Boston Uprising in the inaugural season. And then, he took them to the first unbeaten stage. He took them to a stage finals. Yes, he didn't win anything with the Boston Uprising, but it wasn't a team as powerful as the Shock. Given the players, he's been able to dominate for 2 seasons with the San Francisco Shock during grand finals, and it's testament to his coaching. Philadelphia Fusion don't have that sort of coaching, and so they can't apply the quality they have in their squad as well as the Shock can. So, let's look at the mindset of the Shock. You're going into this, and you know the order of the maps, right? So you know you're going to play Control first, then you're going to play Hybrid, then you're going to play 2CP, and then you're going to play Escort, and then you're going to play Control again if in a 5-map series, and it's going to rotate from there. So you know what map type to expect coming into the playoffs. Every match is played in that same order. So, San Francisco Shock, is this what they did? They looked at the playoffs and they were like, we're always going to be playing, first of all, Control, then Hybrid. So let's try and absolutely dominate on these maps. Let's make sure we know these 2 map types inside and out. Then in every single match, we can take a 2-0 lead. That puts us in a fantastic position for the entire series, especially during a first to 3. Then we have got a good idea of what our opponents are doing. We've got an idea of how to react to how they're playing. We've got an idea of how they're going to play. We've got an idea of how to counter them. We're a team that is great at in-game adaptation. Plus, when you've had these 2 matches, you have a half-time. And when you have a half-time, you have a coaching break. Crusty then can then intervene if there's any issues he sees in the first 2 maps. And then they can improve on that. So, when they come back out after half-time, it doesn't matter if you lose the next 2 maps. Yes, it may be the 2 map types we've not prepared for as strongly, but then when you come back round to map 5, when it really, really matters, when you have to clutch it out, when it's do or die, it's back to Control. It's back to the map type you played first of all. It's back to your comfort zone. Is this what the Shock planned? It's very interesting, isn't it? But the thing is, if you look at every single match that the San Francisco Shock played during these grand finals, it actually supports this fact. So, let's take a look at the first match they played against the Seoul Dynasty. They played 5 maps. The first 2 maps, Oasis was Control, San Francisco Shock win it 2-0. The second map, Hollywood, Hybrid, San Francisco Shock win it 3-0. Halftime, Seoul come back out, adjustments are made, Seoul come back into the game on San Francisco Shock's perhaps 2 weaker map types that they haven't concentrated on as much during the preparation for these grand finals. That's Assault, 2CP, and the Escort map type. Then we come back round in map 5 with it at a 2-2 draw right now. They have to clutch it out. This is where they need to win, but it comes back round to Control. It comes back round to King of the Hill. And then we're at Busan, where San Francisco Shock take it 2-0. All of a sudden, we're wondering, oh my, Shock are clutch. They're clutching it right at the last minute when they need to. There's more to the story. We move on to the next fixture. They play against the Shanghai Dragons. This was the big fixture we'd all been expecting. The number 1 in Asia versus the number 1 in North America. And guess what? Very similar tale. In fact, actually, only one of the maps is different. So, first map, Oasis, Control, 2-0 to the San Francisco Shock. Second map, Hollywood, Hybrid, 3-2 to the San Francisco Shock. Not as dominant as it was against the Seoul Dynasty, but Shanghai Dragons are perhaps a better team. So we go into halftime. Shock are in a great position once again, just like they were against the Seoul Dynasty. Come back out, Volskaya. This was the same map as the Seoul Dynasty. This goes in a 3-4 to the Dragons. All of a sudden it's slightly turning around a bit. Slightly Shock start to look slightly weaker. Dragons are starting to make some changes. Watch Point Gibraltar. Again, this is the only different map from the Seoul game. It goes the way of the Dragons again. All of a sudden we're in this identical 2-2 scenario. And the Shock have to clutch. Guess what? The San Francisco Shock have the map pick. They take it to Busan because it's Control, just like they did against Seoul Dynasty. And just like they did against Seoul Dynasty, they win it 2-0. It's like a carbon copy. It's like there's a pattern developing. So, the question is, can they translate this to a 7 map, possibly 7 map, I should say? Can they translate this to a 1st to 4 grand final series? Well, guess what? They were playing the Seoul Dynasty again. Let's take a look at it. Oh, first map is Oasis. San Francisco Shock win it 2-0. Then we go to Hybrid on Kings Row. We hadn't seen Kings Row for the San Francisco Shock yet, but this is a 3-2 for the San Francisco Shock. They win Hybrid. What a surprise. Then we come back to Assault, 2CP. It goes to Seoul Dynasty. Oh, Seoul Dynasty coming back into it, but wait, this is the map type that Shock haven't actually won on in the grand finals yet. Then we go to Escort. Again, another map type Shock are weaker on during these grand finals that they haven't won on, and Seoul take it again in quite convincing fashion, actually 3-0, just like the Shanghai Dragons did. But then we come back and we do the rotation again. We come to map 5, it's Control again, it's Busan again, San Francisco Shock win 2-0 again. But we have the extra map because it's 1st to 4. So what's the extra map? It's Hybrid. It's Hollywood. 2-1 to the San Francisco Shock, they get the 4-2 win in the grand final. There is a pattern. San Francisco Shock did not win on Escort or Assault this entire grand finals. Not once. They lost every map on those map types. But every map that was Control, Hybrid, they won. They won on only 2 map types this entire grand finals, and they are the Overwatch League champions for 2020. So, do we have to ask questions? I think we do. Was this a plan from Crusty? Did he know, and it's quite obvious, did he know that as long as he can win those 2 map types, he can win the competition? I bet he did. I bet he did. Crusty is an incredibly big-headed coach. And big-headed, I don't mean that, 5-head. He's an incredibly wise, incredibly good coach. He probably looked at that and said, this is what we need to dominate. We need to dominate Control. We need to dominate Hybrid. If we can do that, we win these grand finals. Now, is this right? Possibly not. How do we avoid this situation in the future? Well, Overwatch League, make the map order random. it was being done during the season. It just hasn't happened in these grand finals. But it would have messed this shock system up if they'd had to one match play control, then hybrid, then assault. Then in the next match they play control, escort, assault, hybrid. That would start to mess the shock system up. Or they move the assault map, so you have to play escort, then hybrid, then assault, and things like that. All of a sudden this system gets messed up and you have to be able to dominate certain maps. It is interesting, and it's an interesting pattern that's emerged. The San Francisco Shock only actually had to win on 2 map types during this entire competition, and the fact also stands that the maps were also pretty isolated. Oasis was always control, Busan was always control. They only actually won on 2 control maps. That's something to highlight. Also, Hollywood. They kept going to Hollywood, whether it be the enemies or San Francisco taking themselves to that. So that's the 3rd map. They won on King's Row. That's pretty much it. Like, they only won not just on 2 map types, but 4 maps. This entire tournament. Hollywood, Oasis, King's Row, Busan. That's it. That's incredible. And maybe shows a flaw in the way in which the Overwatch League works. It's an interesting one. Have a discussion in the comments about it. But thank you to the guys in the comments in the results video, because this is actually a really incredibly interesting topic to talk about. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.